and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. Alright guys, I am super stoked to once again be with my 2012 Honda ST1300 project bike. And I am happy to report that this bike is all back together. Over the course of this week, I have had new wheel bearings installed in the front wheel on the motorcycle, and now I have the wheels mounted back on the bike. I've also got brand new Shinko Verge tires mounted on the front of the bike and the rear of the bike, and those are ready to go. Those are a sport touring tire by Shinko. I've completed bleeding out the brake system on this motorcycle, and it's a little bit complex with 7 different bleeder valves on that system alone. The ST1300 was one of many Honda motorcycles that featured the infamous or famous linked brake system. The way that functions on this motorcycle is when I squeeze the front brakes, I get the majority of my stopping power on the front of the bike, on the front brakes, and then some brake pressure on the rear brake as well. And when I operate the rear brake pedal, that sends the majority of the stopping power to the rear disc brake, but it also sends some pressure to the front disc. Evidently, Honda did research, and that type of braking system was the safest type of braking system for most riders. When it applies the brakes in such a fashion, it stabilizes the bike more from front to back, and it kind of settles both ends of the bike at the same time. I think that's the main advantage of a linked brake system. I've ridden many Honda motorcycles with the linked brake system, and from the saddle, it's very transparent, and you can't really feel any difference over a conventional system. While I was doing a complete service on the bike, I also changed the engine oil and the filter on the motorcycle. I used Kawasaki 10W40 motorcycle specific oil on this particular oil change, and I used a high flow HF204 filter. It's a relatively easy bike to do the oil change service on, and that didn't take very long at all. Likewise, I serviced the rear of the bike. I used Lucas 8090 gear oil when I serviced the rear of the bike. When servicing the engine oil and the rear of the bike, I replaced the crush washers on both drain plugs. I also replaced the O-ring on the fill plug on the motorcycle and for the oil fill plug on the top of the motor. The last thing you want to do is service a bike and then have it leaking from one of the plugs after you do that job. In a previous video, I had removed all of the fairings off of the bike, and I had done a little bit of plastic repair on a couple of tabs, and I've also replaced a couple of pieces on the fairing parts. And I've also ordered replacements for all of the non-standard hardware that was on this motorcycle. And so now it is sporting all of the correct hardware in all of the fairing fastener positions. And that's just peace of mind for me. I don't like non-standard fairing fasteners on a motorcycle. They're not super expensive, and I'm not sure how they went missing in the first place. One of the things that I noticed when I first rode the motorcycle, and I had mentioned in a previous episode, is that the windshield that is on the bike is kind of tucked down a little bit and closer on this side of the windshield. And I had pulled the windshield off, and I actually placed the windshield carefully in a vise for about a week and a half to kind of shape it a little bit differently. And so now it's much more centered on the front of the bike, and it's not nearly as annoying to have an off-center front fairing. I think the problem here is this is just an inexpensive front windshield, and the holes that were drilled in it weren't drilled exactly where they should be, and so it still sits a little bit off center, but it's not enough to be super annoying. All right, let's give it a quick listen and see what it sounds like, and in a minute we'll take this bike out on the road to see how it rides. So stay tuned for that. All right, I'm happy to report that sounds great. I love the V4 motor in these motorcycles. If you like great motorcycle related content and you want to help support this channel, please consider becoming a member. Depending on the level of membership, members get bonus features like early access to new videos, and bonus content on this channel. And your support will help me continue to make great quality motorcycle videos for you to enjoy. And I just want to give a special shout out to all of my members and subscribers and those of you who participate in the comment section of this channel. Thank you guys so much. I could not do this without you. One of the major safety concerns on this motorcycle when I got it was that the front brake discs and the front brake pads were completely contaminated with axle grease. This bike actually had the worst brake contamination I have ever seen on a motorcycle. And what that meant was you would give it a lot of pressure here at the lever and the bike would kind of leisurely slow down, which is certainly not optimal for a big, heavy, fast motorcycle. And so what I've done is I have pulled the brake pads off. I have replaced those with some new EBC HH style pads. I've also spent a lot of time cleaning the brake rotors. I scuffed them up a little bit with some Scotch-Brite as well to kind of roughen the surface a little bit and help the brake pads to wear into the brake discs a little bit more efficiently and a little bit more quickly. And I even went so far as to go to the gun store and get a bore cleaner and clean out all of the holes on each of the front discs and remove any grease that was in there. If I had not done that, as the brakes would heat up, that grease would kind of melt and recontaminate the brake discs and the brake pads, and then I'd have to start that process all over again. So that has been thoroughly cleaned. That's up to spec, and we'll see how the new brake pads function out on the road. Although I covered these two items in a previous video, I'll just mention that the air cleaner in this bike is brand new. That looks great. I've also checked the coolant level on the bike, and the coolant itself was also recently changed. Another thing that I had done previously is change the clutch fluid in this motorcycle. So that is literally all of the fluids in this bike have been changed, and this bike has been completely serviced from front to back. And now this bike should be completely ready to rock and ready to go and to enjoy the next riding season. I'll probably put some more miles on it before the winter season finally gets here. But this bike should now be running as close to new as I can possibly make it, and I'm anxious to see what it rides like. All right, enough talk. What is this bike like to ride? I'm going to gear up. I'll bring the camera along. Let's find out together. Let's ride. All right, man, what a lot of fun. I'm happy to report the test drive went very, very well. The brakes are functioning incredibly well. It's such a huge improvement. There's very minimal pressure that I have to apply now to actually stop pretty hard. The brakes are just functioning great. These will actually continue to improve as I ride the bike and as the brake pads bed in, and they'll give even more bite than they do now. But it's already a tremendous improvement. The handling on the bike is also tremendously improved with the new tires. This thing just glides through the corners so nicely. Also, I don't have any leaks or drips underneath the bike. Everything is tight, everything is dry. The fairing didn't vibrate. Everything seems very well buttoned down on that. I'll double check all my fasteners and make sure that everything is good to go. But really, this bike is ready to ride, ready to get out and enjoy. And I love it when a project gets to this stage and I can actually enjoy it without thinking about all the things that could go wrong or all the things that I still need to do along the project lines. I'm currently working on another ST1300 video, and that covers long-term ownership of the ST1300. I'll talk about how the bike compares to some of the competition from Kawasaki and Yamaha, and my high points and low points of the ST1300, as well as just my overall impressions of the bike. I'll touch on things like serviceability, I'll touch on things like handling and brakes and ride and engine performance. I currently have two of these bikes in the garage. My silver ST1300 is the one that I have put the most miles on over the course of this past year, and I'm right around 5,000 miles that I've put on that machine. In that video, I plan on doing some more onboard commentary and actually taking the bike out and riding it and giving my thoughts about it as I ride the bike. If there are any ST1300 fans out there, please let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you have a project that you are currently working on, I'd love to hear about it. Let me know in the comment section. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative. And until next time, enjoy the ride.